Hello everyone and welcome back to another What's in Bloom video where we look at all the orchids that have been in bloom over the last month, being the month of November. This time there are literally 0 reblooms. None of these are my accomplishments, so to say. All of these are bought, either in flower or in bud. So if they look amazing to you, don't go complimenting me because I haven't done anything to achieve this. I'm just soaking it up and enjoying it. As you can see, there's only one phalaenopsis in bloom at this point. The lindeni is actually still in bloom, but it's fading, so I already showed it twice, so I figured I'd leave it out this time. But we have the phalaenopsis tetraspis instead. Let's just jump right in with the first one. So first up is the phalaenopsis tetraspis C1, which is a cultivar that's been named. And this means that this is a clone actually of an original plant that's out there somewhere. And the special thing about tetraspis is that none of the flowers are alike. So you can see here, the first bloom that opened is fully white, with the splash of purple on the lip. But the second flower which opened has 2 lateral sepals, which are kind of like crimson red. Let me just see if I can get the colors out a little bit better for you. I think this is slightly more accurate, but it's just difficult to tell reds with this camera. It's not very good at it. I'll just leave my hand behind for you so you can actually see the contrast with the wall. I wish I had a better background for you guys. I need to invest in some black cloth or something I can mount on the wall. So you get these white flowers with occasional fully crimson lateral sepals or petals, or dorsal sepals, just sepals or petals. And that makes this quite special actually. This cultivar, the C1 in particular, has fully red sepals or petals, or almost full. You can see the tips are still a bit white. But others have red stripes or red dots or splotches or half full petals and sepals. And it really tends to differ between the different plants you have, which makes tetraspis a very interesting species because every single flower from every single plant just tends to really be unique. And there's actually some debate about whether or not the tetraspis, which you see here before us, is actually the same species as the speciosa, of which I have a different variant, which we'll see later on in this video. There are people who argue that the speciosa is just a darker variant of the tetraspis, and I haven't really found much of a conclusion in literature, but either way, they're often used as synonyms to each other. This one's been on my wishlist for a while, so I'm really glad I have it and it's still in bloom. It is scented, but not very nicely, I'm afraid. It smells a bit like burnt plastic, which is about as bad as it sounds. So do not buy this orchid for the scent. Although it is interesting, if you go into literature, I hear accounts of this orchid smelling really pleasant and really floral and really strong. But unfortunately, not in my case. Next up, we have 2 new dendrobium nobiles, which I actually got as a gift this November from my grandma. She knows that I like orchids and she saw in this flyer from the supermarket that they have these for discount and that they were like, you know, different from the usual phalaenopsis orchid. So she went out there special for me to get these for me. So if you're watching, Grandma, and I know you do watch these videos sometimes, thank you. They're beautiful. Actually, they smell quite nice as well, especially this one. It has a very nice floral kind of scent. This one I don't smell as much. So I actually think that I do have one of these already. It looks a lot like the Dendrobium nobile Stardust Chiome. But I'm still quite happy to have this one because my Stardust Chiome is actually one of the very first 3 orchids I bought in my very first year of growing orchids, which was literally just 1 year ago. But I messed up with it and I potted too deep into its media and it got black rot. It's still alive. I have 2 keikis of it. But they're quite small now and I don't know how much longer it will take for it to recover and actually be able to flower in the future. So I'm really happy to have this flowering size orchid again. And I can see that the supermarket has kind of like snipped off these canes, which they tend to do sometimes to make the display look nicer, which is a shame because it means that these don't have a lot of storage capacity to back them up. But I'm sure it will recover all right. And I don't know what this might be, it's new to me, but I have seen it in shops quite often, so if any of you have an idea of what it can be, please let me know and I can give it a name. Next we have, and this is truly a mouthful, meshaara Chian-Tzy Ruby CT Golden Chocolate. So that's quite a lot of words to remember, so I don't remember. I have it written down somewhere. It doesn't actually have a tag, I have to make one for it. It's a really cute little plant. It's very small actually. Let me zoom back a bit and show you. So it's really quite compact, this plant. It's very compact in fact. You can see that the flowers are about the size of my thumb, a little bit bigger than that. And the plant itself is very, very tiny actually. Like the pseudobulbs are about as large as the last part of my thumb. I don't know what that's called. Last joint? No, that's not quite it. Anyway, they're small. And they grow very compactly, very closely grown together. And it's just really cute. And actually, I should have filmed this earlier because it had a much nicer blooming when I first bought it. Obviously, this still needs to open here, so is this and this. So it will still have a nice display. But we're kind of like in between displays now. This old one is dying out and the new one's only just opening. I can, however, show some footage from the video I shot when I unboxed it from the Orchidarium. So I'll play that on the screen right now so you can kind of see that while I talk about the plant. And what I liked about this plant especially are the little blooms. Here you can see a little bit of a close-up of the bloom. And you can see that the lip is kind of mottled with darker reds and whites, kind of like splashes of dark red on a lighter red. And then you have a little bit of a yellow kind of tongue, I don't know what to call that actually, maybe it's a callus, with more red dots on the callus. And it gives a really nice contrast with the white column. And I really like the dark burgundy of the petals. So all in all, this flower for me is a win. It has all my favorite colors and it smells nice too, remember. Let me just check. So I can't actually smell anything. However, that's not the plant's fault. It's because the Chian-Tzy, which I'm going to show you next, is completely overpowering everything else in the room. Currently, that's all I can smell. But I remember it's smelling a little bit sugary. I can check from my other video. So that's it. That's the meshaara. What was it? Meshaara Chian-Tzy Ruby CT Golden Chocolates. That's from the top of my head. Aren't you proud? We'll probably see it again in the next video because we've got another flower spike coming right here. And also 2 more buds from here. So it'll be in bloom for a bit longer. Next, it's a star that burns bright but short. The Chian-Tzy's Golden Showers. And yes, I know, the name's hilarious. And actually, this might not really be the Golden Showers. It might actually be the chlorochyllon or the... Oh god, how do you say that? Or the Chian-Tzy's warscewiczii, which I find kind of difficult to distinguish from the chlorochyllon. So I'm not sure which it would be, but I'm reasonably sure it's not actually the Golden Showers, which is something the owner of the Orchidarium has also said to me that he doesn't think it's the actual hybrid. So probably this tag is wrong and I'm going to have to change it to 1 to 2 species instead. Regardless of the name, it is a magnificent flowering orchid. We have huge flowers, which last time I measured them were about 12 centimeters across. I can measure them on tape if you like. 1 second. Right, so these are huge flowers and last time I measured them it was like 12 centimeters. And in fact, now I'm getting, yeah, about 12 centimeters as well. Well, let me just flatten these out so it's easier to see. So yeah, about 12 centimeters across. And I think from top to bottom it was something similar. Maybe 13 centimeters. Either way, large flowers. And they're waxy and sturdy. And they have this beautiful lime green color, which is contrasted really nicely with the lips. And then you have this dark green kind of callus over here, and all in all it's just a stunning display. I've got 5 flowers on each branch, and let me take you in for a close-up. So you can see that it has a rather interesting shape. It kind of looks like it's upside down almost, right? Because, sorry for the shake, I'm leaning on the table. Because the lip is kind of like pointing upwards and you have the column curving down and then up. So it kind of feels like the flower should be like turned around, but this is the normal way for them to bloom. They're supposed to be quote unquote upside down like this. And they actually have a very nice star shape. With the way these petals and sepals are arranged. And the lip here is very waxy and very sturdy. I can't actually bend it. And if you look on the other side, you can see it's actually completely hollow, more so than I've seen any other Catosetaceae. And they smell really strong and pretty amazingly like a kind of really musky perfume. I liken it to men's perfume, but then I get asked, well, what does men's perfume smell like exactly? And, well, I don't know. It's like the generic scent you get when you walk into the men's section of the perfume store is how I liken it. But all in all, it's just really powerful and thankfully a lot nicer than the Wine Delight in my opinion. So I can actually take this in my living room and enjoy it. Unfortunately, Chian-Tzy tend to flower for only about a week, maybe 2, especially if they're species. The hybrids can sometimes bloom for a bit longer than that. And since this is most likely one of the 2 species I mentioned, I don't expect the flowers to last very long. Probably by the time that the next weekend comes around, some of them will be fading already. So I'm really glad that it flowered, on time for me to share it with you guys in this video. That's like the biggest drawback of Chian-Tzy, the fact that their flowers are so short-lived. But they really do make up for it with a spectacular show. I don't think I can get a show like this from any of my other orchids. It is beautiful. And this is my latest orchid, which is a noID brassia, which I picked up from supermarkets. Now, usually I don't buy orchids from the supermarket anymore because I tend to be disappointed with the quality. And they don't have as many special things. I really am into the Cassids and novelty phalaenopsis now. I love those things so much. So I usually prefer to keep my limited space for things I really find very special. And I usually don't find those in a flower shop. However, some of you might know that I have a brassia that was given to me by my mother. But I suspect it has fusarium. It's not doing very well. And when I cut through the rhizome, there was actually a bit of a purple reddish ring. It's one of the big signs of fusarium. So I still have it. It's separated from the rest of the collection in my bedroom instead of the living room. However, it's not necessarily doing that well. And then I found this one. Oops, I hit it. And this one's actually very similar to the one that my mother got me. It's not quite the same, but similar enough. Plus, it smells really nice. So let me give you a close-up of that flower. So you can see that the display is actually a little bit haphazard. You have one that's setting in this orientation, and this one's like rotated 90 degrees. But that doesn't really bother me that much. At least they're all facing upwards. They're all kind of facing the same direction, as you can see. Which is quite nice. I quite like that. And the main feature that I enjoy about this brassia is the lip. Because if you take a look at the lip, now maybe you can see the lip a little bit better. And I mostly really like the fact that you have these larger spots on the lip, but you also have a lot of very small spots. And all of them are kind of surrounded by this lighter pink ring, which gives it a very intricate look. And it makes the flower really interesting. Beyond that, the main attraction from this flower is the scent. It's quite strong actually. It's been on my living room, it's been on my coffee table for a couple of days now. And even when the sun's not shining fully on it, in fact, even in the evening when the sun has gone down, it actually smells quite strongly. It has like a hint of cinnamon, but I feel like I smell it in a lot of different orchids. So maybe that I just like to think that I smell cinnamon. But it's also very floral. And even though it's strong at most points of the day, it's not overly strong and invasive. So it doesn't kick you out of a room, not like the Wine Delight, which I really like about this plant because that fragrance is quite lovely. Now it has bloomed with 2 spikes. The other one's back there. But the other spike is actually already wilting. It started wilting literally the day after I got it, which is, a common thing with orchids that you buy in the supermarket, especially if it doesn't have any buds left. And well, you can see when they wilt that especially the petals, which kind of look like legs almost, they start really losing their substance and kind of folding over themselves. And you get this yellow or browning edging on the lip. And, those are going to fall very soon. But hopefully, this other spike over here will remain for a few days longer, hopefully like a week or 2 weeks. And I can continue to enjoy the beautiful blooms and the wonderful smell. If anyone has a possible ID for this brassia, I'd be quite happy to hear about it because I do like having an ID to call my orchids by. And yes, I know a noID is always a no ID, but still, I just like to have a name. The next orchid in bloom is the phalaenopsis gigantia crossed with sumatrana, or possibly crossed with tetraspis. The tag does say sumatrana, but the owner had his doubts. I mean, the owner of the orchidarium where I bought it has doubts. So it is the start of the month. I actually only just bought this orchid yesterday. But I see that some of the flowers are already closing, which I think is because there's quite a bit of draft in this room. The doors to the balcony don't seal off properly, and there's quite a lot of cold air that comes in here, which I've notified the owners of the building off, but I'm afraid that's taken its toll on the flowers. So you can see this one here is already dropping. And this one here as well, they're starting to cup themselves and get ready to drop. But some of them are still open. Actually, I think 3 are falling and 3 are staying open. So that's good, at least we have 3 that stay, among which is this one here at the front. So the main thing with these flowers is that for Polychilus, they're pretty large. Like, they're not overly large, but they're not small either. Polychilus subgenus orchids tend to have pretty small flowers. And the main thing I really like about them is how glossy and waxy they are. They reflect the light really nicely, which of course you don't see as much now because there's not a lot of light anymore. It's the end of the day. And I quite like the patterning as well, which is a bit odd because I tend not to like stripes and dots. And last time with the Morges, I made this excuse that because the stripes are so close together, it looks like an overall pattern instead of individual stripes. I definitely can't use this excuse with this plant. They're definitely individual stripes, and somehow I still like it, so I have no idea what the difference is. The other thing I really like is the shape of the flower. I like this kind of like more star-like flower shape, rather than the rounder ones. So I quite like this, the tapering of the petals and all that. And the other nice thing about the gigantia crossed with sumatrana is the smell. It's pretty fragrant actually. If I sit on my couch, which is pretty close to where it's hanging actually, I think maybe 20 centimeters away, I can smell it very, very clearly. And it's a nice neutral floral smell, like the generic floral smell that some Polychilus subgenus phalaenopsis tend to have. And I really quite like it. It's one of those smells that are very nice to have in the background, that don't overpower too much, nothing like the Wine Delight. I'll give you a bit of a close-up of the flower as well so you can see the lip better. There we go. Now that you're properly zoomed in, you can see that the color, the red on the petals and sepals is actually quite muted, and it's more muted the further you go into the center. And when you get to the tips, it gets pretty well saturated red. And towards the center, it's quite nice. It kind of fades into this orangey kind of circle around the column, as you can see. And that orange is then kind of reflected back, albeit more vibrantly, in the callus. And the lip, you can see this beautiful purple striations that kind of fade down into white. And it's just very muted, but very elegant colors in my opinion. I quite like it. I'm very happy with this plant for sure. And last we have the speciosa Miki Purple, which is quite a famous cultivar actually, because it's well known for its deep purple color. Now if you look at my speciosa, you don't really see that deep purple color. Instead you see this kind of really light and gentle looking pink with these really nice stripes and dots through it. And I actually quite like it a lot, but this is not what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to look pretty dark purple. And in fact, the Orchidarium has sent me photos of the other Miki Purples that are in bloom right now, and all of them are far darker than this one. So they think it's because my new apartment just doesn't get that much light, and potentially also because of the temperature. My apartment is cooler than the greenhouse at the Orchidarium. So they think that it's a mix of those two factors. And hopefully, if it blooms in the summer, we'll see the true Miki's Purple signature dark purple shining through. Although I have to say, even though this isn't what I expected, it's still a really nice bloom. I really quite like this flower, actually. I really like this quality of having this really kind of like light purple pink and then the more dark spotted lines. I guess it's kind of what you see with the mini mark as well. You kind of see these spots that are kind of arranged in this neat pattern, and I seem to really like that. So yeah, even though it's really not what I expected, this flower is right up my alley. I really like it. And actually, if you zoom in on the lip of the flower, you can see that at the tip of it, it has all these kind of like fuzzy looking hairs, which give this nice contrast with the rest of the flower, which is, well, more purple. And of course the callus, you can see, is yellow, and the purple of the lip is actually a different shade, like a much cooler kind of purple than the petals and sepals. The orchid does have a scent, but it's not a great scent. Quite similar to the tetraspis C1, it has a bit of a burnt plastic smell. This one isn't quite as bad, it's a little bit more floral, but it's still not that great. And it's also not very strong actually. You have to really get your nose close to the flower to smell it, which I guess is a good thing since the scent isn't that great. I messed up with this one a little bit. I didn't water it on time. I was overly cautious about watering it, and because I watered it a bit too late, it dropped a few buds, and I think it also dropped a few flowers because of that. So it's no longer in bloom, unfortunately. It's finished blooming now, and this was filmed in the past. I'm doing voiceover now. But I hope to have it in bloom again somewhat soonish, because it's still forming 1 or 2 new buds for as far as I can tell, even though the progress is agonizingly slow. And otherwise, hopefully, we'll see it again in the summer, maybe with a deeper color. So here's one more shot of all the orchids together. Actually, obviously, it's not all of the orchids because there were a few orchids in bloom this month that are no longer in bloom, and which I videoed earlier. But I figured I'd go through the names one more time, at least for the ones that have them. So these two are noIDs that I got from my grandmother, and unfortunately I can't give you any names, but this one looks a lot like the Stardust Chiome. So if you want to look it up, you can do that. This is the Chian-Tzy's, well, officially, according to the label, Chian-Tzy's Golden Shower, but I think that it's actually Chian-Tzy's warscewiczii or Chlorchilum. And this is meshaara Chian-Tzy Ruby CT Golden Chocolate. And this is the tetraspis C1. And if you like this video, please don't hesitate to give it a thumbs up. And if you hated it and think that I mispronounced all of the names, then go ahead and give us a thumbs down. If you have any favorites or any questions to ask me about the orchids, go ahead, leave a like. And if you'd like to see more of these kinds of videos in the future, such as the What's in Bloom for December, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye guys!